they do so much really well. And there's some little bits of opportunity here that I think could be fairly easy to implement and yield something big. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Upstory Unfiltered. This is the show where we talk about the apps that we use on a daily basis, sometimes the apps that we just come across, and give our unfiltered opinion. We are two and a half product designers, let's call it that. And we are Upstory. So Upstory, we started a few years ago to really just have fun making the best products in the world. And we really do put a big emphasis on fun. We spend so much of our lives working. We want to have fun with our clients, and we want to have fun just building really cool things. And so, we started this to, like I said, give some feedback overall to people that we've come in contact with, and sometimes just the apps, like I said, that we use. I'm Rick. I'm the founder of Upstory. I've been designing for 15, 20 years now, it feels like. I think it's 20 years, actually. Long time. And worked with small startups up to big companies with millions and millions of users. And then we have Daniel here.
Yep, Daniel, senior designer here at Upstory. I've been designing for about 10 years, mainly in the early stage startup space. But been designing, helping companies raise a lot of money.
Yeah, and you've worked for 46,000 startups? I forget the number.
50,000.
50,000, okay. Awesome. And we have Nash.
Hey guys, glad to be here again. I'm a growth consultant, so I work with various size companies. And for everyone that's new here, we've joked about an honorary product design degree, and I just got half of one. It sounds
That's
like.
Right, so that's right.
We're getting closer.
You're getting closer, exactly. Well, awesome. So today we have Turo that we're looking at. I've used Turo a ton, both as a host and as a driver, a renter. Just to set the stage, Turo is, it's kind of like the Airbnb of car rentals. It allows you to rent your car to somebody else individually. And then, of course, as a traveler, it allows you to rent a car, sometimes with a lot easier of a setup. In my experience, what I use it for is I can rent a better car for a lot cheaper with a lot less hassle on Turo than I can if I just go through the rental agencies. So I almost exclusively use Turo when I travel. So this is one I know pretty well. Like I also mentioned, I've used it as a host, and I have, my experience as a host is maybe a little bit outdated. It's been a couple of years since I did it, but I had a Tesla that I rented out. I used Turo. I mean, I have Turo to thank for essentially paying off my Tesla, which is great. Or I should say, allowing me to buy one in the first place. And it's been awesome. Let's go ahead and get into it. Well, here we are. And what we often do is we start with just kind of this initial experience, the initial onboarding. Quick caveat I like to make every time we do these videos is that it's easy for us to come in as outsiders and just throw out all the things you've worked so hard on as a designer. So if you're at Turo and you see this and you're like, man, they were so harsh. Like, I understand where you're coming from. Sometimes some of these decisions that I would have made as an outsider, you wanted to make, but you couldn't. You couldn't kind of get that buy-in internally, or there are other reasons, other things that are kind of beyond what I see as an outsider. So we like to give a lot of grace to the internal product teams that have worked on these things. We've been there. We've done that. We know kind of what this looks like sometimes internally, and sometimes some of the things we talk about, we've gotten a lot of feedback from apps that we've talked about that have said, yeah, you're spot on. These are all the things that we're already working on. So you kind of helped us grow this internally, helped us get the weight that we needed behind these decisions that we wanted to make. So sometimes we like to say that we help internal teams do that. So with that said, we'll try not to be too harsh, but we will pick it apart a little bit. So know that it comes from the best heart of, hey, we want this to be the best app it could be. I, as a Turo user, I'm sure I'm going to have some things that I want to want to see improved, but also transparently, man, I'd love to work with Turo, and it'd be fun to get a chance to help with some of these potential ideas here. So anyway, wanted to just kind of give that caveat. All right, so going ahead and going through the onboarding, I'm going to do this kind of as a happy user, right? Some people might say allow notifications, no thanks, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. So allow.
Whoa.
What's a happy user?
A happy user, all right. Daniel's already pushing back. Like, hold on a second. Are you really going to allow notifications? So maybe Daniel, tell me what's your hesitation here?
Well, I was just surprised, kind of excited taking a different look at it, because typically we always assume that nobody wants to allow notifications, but maybe some people do.
Yeah. No, it'd be interesting to see their stats. You're absolutely right. It's funny because it's so easy for me to just like jump past it because I'm trying to have this happy, positive experience. But as a product designer, I'm like, I want everybody to just allow. But the reality is so few people actually do that. I'd be curious to know what Turo's stats are on this. Maybe because Turo is, people kind of know what they're getting into. Maybe they will. Maybe they have a higher state or higher acceptance rate. But it is kind of interesting that that's right away what they start with.
Especially with that nice graphic they had.
Yeah. Also interesting that interested in hosting is like a blocker. I'm sure I can tap out of this rather than hitting got it, but that to me is kind of an interesting choice to say, okay, first thing I saw when I opened the app was allow notifications. The second thing I saw, which I'm guessing 98% of their users that log into the app for the first time have no interest in hosting their car. Interesting that the first two things are kind of like asking you for something that's not what you want to give. All right. So with that said, we've got a list of just kind of what Turo is. Go ahead.
No, I was just trying to play devil's advocate.
Tell me.
Because everyone has a car, so anyone can really become a hoster, or someone who hosts their car. So maybe they found like power users are both users of the app, but also people who host. So they're trying to push you in that direction. Also, they kind of hide it in the more menu, so maybe they're just trying to share it. I do agree that it was kind of like over the top, especially everything dimmed out. Just a big like info box in that bottom area. Didn't really push me in the right direction, but at least I know it's there.
Yep. Yeah, it's because I think there are a lot of other places they could do it. They're going to have transactional emails. If you start renting your car, you're going to have a transactional email, and probably after the fact, it's like, hey, how was your experience? Host your car. Do you have a car? You should host your car. The other thing is, it's possible they have a flag on this to say, hey, we're at a point where we don't have enough cars in X area. We need to show that flag all the time. I should also mention, one of the things that we try and think about as we walk through these is what are the goals that Turo has? What is Turo trying to accomplish here with the app? And right away, of course, notifications. Clearly, that was an important thing for them. Is we want to notify you. We want to right away get in your front of mind. And maybe what they're thinking is, if we give you a reason to be front of mind, then when you're shopping, and I know Turo does this, I've had it all the time. When you abandon your cart, right, it brings you a notification saying, hey, keep looking, this car is still available, or something like that. So there could be some form of, they've seen it working. I would expect they have some data on that as well. So with that said, another interesting choice in my mind is they don't right away show a map. They're showing, they're showing more lifestyle imagery, and then also kind of what is this app about? I'm not sure. I go back and forth on this. I kind of like the idea of this being more of an onboarding to explain it. So I think a good portion of people are going to completely ignore all of this. This is essentially a homepage of a site. I don't imagine a lot of people are going to scroll down. Whereas if you gave them, a 2 or 3 page onboarding, they might be more of a captive audience for that.
Yeah.
With that, let's go ahead and do this. So I'm going to do one that I do all the time. John Wayne Airport. Set my dates and hit search. Okay.
There you go, the EQE.
What's that?
The EQE. I've been trying to look at this car.
Oh, nice. So right away, you see free pickup at SNA, which, by the way, that is a tag I am constantly searching for. And one thing they have that I love is this right here, eco-friendly filter, electric. Now I can view results, and now I'm only looking at electric cars. And what I've found is you can almost always find a good deal on an electric car that's going to be cheaper than going to Hertz or, wherever it is. And right there, this is $166 a day, excluding taxes and fees. And hit continue. And now they're going to ask you to sign up.
There it is. I guess you could say this whole thing right now is onboarding.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's allowing someone to go through the site and search, and I think that makes sense. Generally, I've been fairly happy with the app, kind of how it works. How the details they show. They do a good. One of the things that is always a problem with this sort of thing is there's a mixture between the content Turo wants you to show and the content the host wants to show. And so this description right here is always an interesting one because so many people won't see the description. And sometimes there's important things in this description about, important details about the car. I've had a few times where I've rented a car and it said, John Wayne Airport pickup. And then I found out later that in the details they had, it's not actually at John Wayne. We just have you take a quick Uber over to us 5 miles away, which is really inconvenient.
Yeah.
Turo does a pretty good job of discouraging that for hosts. But just a note on that. But yeah, this is kind of how I use it. I don't generally use the map because I'm almost always I want airport pickup. But if you did want to use the map, I think they do a pretty good job of, kind of updating the search in the area. And let's try this again. Showing cars that are there. And by the way, if you do LAX, I almost guarantee you 80% of the cars that are set to be said they're at LAX and they have airport pickup are not actual airport pickup. And they may show it in the description or they may not. So this is kind of in my mind, one of the problems that they need to solve. Because you just want to have a good experience. And I think let's come back into what are the goals that these guys have for Turo. And to me, I think one of the biggest goals is pretty straightforward. It's just, I want to have a really good experience the first time I rent with Turo. And I better not have any hidden fees. I better not have a host who is late or a host who, the car is not in the shape that they said it would be in. I think there are a lot of things like that are really, really important. I'm curious what you guys think. What are the goals what are the kind of top goals for the app that Turo might have right now?
Yeah, I would agree. Transparency would be pretty good for user. Also, kind of the more obvious ones like cars on the app and then cars being rented. I don't know, maybe if duration is one, but maybe just like having success, like the drop off rate between tapping on a card and then going through to completion. That's probably one. What I'm trying to think about is why the homepage was so like informational. Like, what were they trying to share here? Because I mean, in my opinion, I feel like diving straight into the app might have been better. But there had to have been some sort of like decision here on like why all this is here, and like maybe some sort of goal was trying to be put in these first pages that we're missing.
Yeah. I wonder
I'm
if it's
trying
as simple as just branding. Whereas
to
if you go right to the map, you go right to a search, you
hmm
kind of miss the opportunity to do branding. And this image here is just this lifestyle imagery that Cybertruck has landed. It's like, hey,
hmm
we're a little bit different than your average rental company.
hmm
It could be as straightforward as that, and you know, they probably expect most people won't scroll down unless they maybe see the Cybertruck. Okay, that's kind of cool. I'll check out
yeah.
Cybertrucks. Um, 424 in the middle of Kansas here.
Let's go.
Let's just see.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
oh, sorry, Daniel. Go ahead.
No, go for it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I've used Turo a decent amount too, and I think you're right, spot on. And like, it's got to be. And I'm curious where Turo is at with their brand equity. Are they like mostly trusted? So maybe my thinking is on this is like they're still getting some trust. I think the first time I used them was in 2019 ish, and it was still kind of like, do I trust this thing? I was just hearing about Turo. I don't know how long it's been around, so I don't know if they're still on that stage of gaining trust from people to buy a car or to rent a car, and then maybe even um, list your car. And so there's that. My second, I'm curious your guys' thoughts on this, but I've noticed a hard push for the insurance.
Yes.
Is that their? Do they make their cash on that? Like that's like a. It's like you get almost. I'll be interested to see you go through, but it's almost like three times.
Oh yeah, they push it so hard.
Okay.
They really
So maybe
do.
I don't know how they
Yeah.
make cash on this, but
No, I mean, well, let me show you. They make cash in a number of different ways, and I know a little bit more about their their deals. All right, let's do this Mercedes Benz. I know a little bit more about what they do because I've driven for them, and so they basically,
oh
at least
sure.
when it was at the time, it was 85%, 75%, and 65%. I think they upped it so you get 90%, 80%, 70 or something like that. But it's based on like how much risk you want to have as a driver, and so they make a certain percentage of all sales, which the buyer is unaware of. So if it's a $90 a day or $100 a day, the owner is going to get $90, and then they have a platform fee, which is like, let's say $10, and then they have the insurance. And so I think you're right. I think they make a lot on the insurance. Actually, let's go sign up. Let's see if the difference is what the difference is here. So I'm going to go ahead and continue with Google.
I'm not too familiar with the insurance part, but is it just like if you rent a car, you can get insurance through Turo?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. For like the trip, it's like $100 or something.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So terms of service, agree, email, update, send promotions, no. I'm not that happy of a user. All right, get approved to drive. Okay. So this is probably a big stopping point for a lot of people. This like profile, photo, phone number, driver's license, payment method. I bet this is a big deal for them.
Yeah, need it.
Take photo.
I don't know. I don't know if we're sure about this guy. We are. I think I remember doing this. It looks as though they've improved this. I feel like the experience the first time I did this was not this clean.
No, I agree. They have cleaned up a lot. I've noticed that over the years. There's a lot of little things that they've done. See, this is it. This is the page that they're going to struggle with. 100%. Like,
Mm-hmm.
do I want to put my license in? Okay. What could we do here? What could we do to increase retention on this page?
I think two things. One is you don't need to do it right now. You can do it when you actually want to rent a car.
Mm-hmm.
Which might be, I mean, you probably tested that. It might be weird because once you are about to do it, but then you realize you need to put in your license, it might be kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's not the best move, but I do think that could be an option. Number two is, and this kind of comes from experience with working in like the financial industry, like stocks and like handling people's brokerages. We oftentimes need to ask for like really sensitive information, like social security and like
Mm-hmm.
IDs and like passport and stuff like that. Here, like I don't know why I'm giving you my driver's license. I can assume that you probably need it because you just need it. You need to drive with a license, but I don't know exactly why you need it. So if you told me like um, why you're using it or what you're using it for, in like a pretty simple way, um, that would probably push me over there. It's like, okay, like might as well just get over with it now. Maybe even in the beginning, now that we're talking about like time, we can just say how long it might take to finish this, like 2 to 3 minutes. Like I can spend 2 to 3 minutes finishing this. Like mentally, I'm committed to finishing it at that point. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then third, maybe just a little um, icing on top is just like scan license to autofill. It'd be cool just to like kind of have that like preloaded instead of having to press that button.
What happens if I press it? Continue. Yeah. Okay.
I wasn't expecting it to be sideways, but oh yeah,
Right.
I'll
Right.
figure this is. But I guess sideways makes sense. You kind of want the text to be bigger.
Yeah. For me, the one thing is this is a little bit of I haven't seen this before, where they're asking for your license like this. Um, Usually, it's just the scanning, like you said. But one thing I think is missing potentially here is just some warmth on the page.
Yeah.
It's just a little cold. It's a little bit just transactional. And like you said, I think skipping it, the ability to skip until you get to a point where you absolutely need it, but also, like you said, validating why we need it. We need it because we want to keep our platform safe. We want to keep real people on it. We don't like spam. We don't like bots. We're fighting against the bots, whatever. And then I like your idea of how long. In fact, they might have even had something like that. So if I hit continue here, let's see what it does. So I've gotten this far, get approved to drive. Continue. Yep. So they kind of do have it there. You can skip.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna sign out and I'm gonna sign in now. I do like this, by the way. This like check. That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
I think it could be visually a little bit more warm on some of these. Just some like an illustration at the top could just
Yeah.
help with some of
Maybe
this.
this is like where like the branding part comes in. Spend so much time on like the homepage being branded, but I think spreading all that effort across the screens could also test to see if that's more fruitful versus like loading everything on the homepage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so let me sign in here. Let me go back and I'm going to sign in as my real user. So here we go. Let me go back here to the search. We're going to John Wayne. Oh, that's right. I was like, why isn't it remembering all that stuff? And it's because I'm a new user. And that user is going to get warned. This car is no longer available. Oh, interesting. Now I have to get approved with my phone number. All right, here we go. So now we get into checkout. Nash, you asked, how do they make their money? So they're a little tricky, and I remember thinking this as a driver. So this $86 for 3 days. They don't tell you, but they make money there. They make either 10%, 20%, 25%, 30%, depends on what the renter is doing. And and that's basically like the insurance that the renter has, the rent or the host has. The trip fee, they make that's just straight up their platform fee. Airport fee, they have to pay the airport. I'm guessing they probably take some money off the top of that one. Delivery fee and sales tax, and then discount. Okay, so they're taking money in a bunch of different buckets here, just so you're aware.
Okay.
But you asked how do these extras work? So the extras, these are pretty straightforward. I think so far as a user, these are pretty useful. And Turo has done a really good job of limiting these extras to not be like you can type in anything and call it an extra. Like I remember when I was renting my car, I wanted to add some things. I forget what I wanted to add, but I wanted to add something that like you have to add one of our 40 different extras. That's all we can do. And I think they wanted it to just be like, because otherwise users can be like, oh yeah, it's $40 a day plus the required extra of the $80 whatever host fee, you know. So no thanks, I don't want any extras. And here's Nash, where we're going to get into it. So one step to go. Insurance. So we have standard and minimum. Interesting that I can't choose any of them. It used to be protection plans. Hang on a second.
Yeah, I know. I think you can, but I know for me, it was not easy to not choose one.
Oh, you know what it is? That car requires it. So hang on, let's go to a different car. That's new. That's brand new. All right, I don't.
Makes sense. Kind of a expensive new car.
Yeah,
Yeah,
fair
yeah.
enough.
Let's just do this guy. Continue. It's a little odd that the way they do this page now, they have this kind of summary page and then one step to go, and then they pop up a modal and one step to go. Here we go, decline. Which, by the way, this is interesting that it says decline protection because typically they would have it like auto selected, but I always decline it. And on the web, it's even more like difficult to decline. And there you go. Book this trip. Turo's gonna love me. Let me just make sure. How far out is this trip? April 4th. That's too soon. Okay. I'm not gonna book this. I was gonna book it and then cancel it right away, but I'm not gonna do that. And then they also have like 24-hour cancellation, which I don't think they do much to explain, do they? Did you notice that in the checkout?
Not really.
Free cancellation, full refund before April.
There it is.
Okay. Yeah,
They
okay.
did.
Yeah. So there you go. There's the process all the way through to checkout. We could spend some time as a host, but that's going to be harder to view. So overall, I think Turo does a really good job, and considering all the apps that we've reviewed, it's uncommon to have a walkthrough that's this positive. I think they've really thought through a lot of these things. Transparently as a host, I had some complaints, and I don't know where it's at as of more recently. I bet they fixed a lot of things. Built in some of the processes. I've noticed a few things, like you mentioned, Nash, about the insurance. They're pushing a little harder. And one thing that we can't really show here that I think they do a really good job of is it used to be a little bit harder to actually check in with the car, where it used to be like really on the host and the renter to kind of do that handshake. And now they've made it so that a lot of cars have remote unlock, and a lot of cars, and all cars, they require you to like show your license and show a photo of your face before you actually take the car for the day. And I think that's just really, really useful for the host to feel that sense of security. So Yeah. Um, with that said, I've got a few different things that I think if I were if I were working with Turo right now, I think there are a few things that I would look at, and they're fairly similar to some of the things that we talk about with a lot of our clients. But before we get into that, are there any other things that you guys have noticed as we walked through that you'd be going, "Ooh, I want to see that," or what is it? Does this make sense or this doesn't make sense to you?
Um, for me, I got two things I wanna say. I think overall the experience felt pretty dang refined. Um, I think anything I would say is probably more subjective than it is anything else. Uh, and number two isn't really answering your question, but then just a thought to go into the next segment is a prompt where like if you were to say like maybe one thing or two things to increase their bottom line by like I don't know, it's like 5% or something, 1 to 5%. Um, what would that be?
Yeah, for me, it would be taking those points where there are points of friction, and spending a lot of time on them. So let's go into it. Well, before we get into that, I'm just curious,
Yeah.
Nash, any other ideas from you that we haven't already talked about? Any other thoughts on this?
I have an idea, but I agree with Daniel. I think this is like a really overall. I've enjoyed the experience with Turo. I think yeah, it's pretty clean. I have an idea for how they could make it a even better experience and maybe even like a stickier, more even a daily usage. I don't know if you want that now, but
Yeah,
and so I think that is. I think initially the excitement about Turo was even for me. I was like, "Oh, I'm going to drive a Tesla." Like the opportunity to drive like a cool car or like the EQE. So I think that was one thing that differentiated Turo. Like I could drive all these kind of unique cars, and so if you could make this thing like I want to browse car, I think that's kind of what they're doing there with the Cybertruck. Like, oh, I can maybe drive a Cybertruck. That's like so cool. And so maybe if you can get someone to I think there's a lot of partnership, like maybe even Wander type partnership collaborations. Browse on this thing.
Mm.
Like I'm gonna take a trip here that wasn't planned just so I can drive this vehicle. Maybe those types of partnerships and collaborations could be interesting. I was even thinking of private auto. Like, why couldn't they now sell cars on here?
Yeah.
You basically have everything on here. So why couldn't you also hit a button that says, "Want to sell your car on Turo"?
yeah. So just ways to expand the market potentially.
Yeah, that's maybe
Yeah, yeah. No, I get it. Well, and in that, let's wrap it up here because I think that brings that's one of the 3 points that I would have, and one of
Yeah.
it's kind of around the branding, right? What is the brand of Turo? And we mentioned it just overall, just kind of bringing that warmth throughout the rest of it. Um, but also with that brand is like, what does the Turo brand stand for? Are we unique cars? And I think to some extent, kind of higher level of cars, a little bit more luxurious, and quite honestly, pretty close to the same price, if not cheaper, a lot of the time, depending on the city, which to me is it's a no brainer. Um, but then you mentioned partnering. They are partnering with Kayak. So if you go to Kayak and you search for rentals, they'll always come up. But there could be some more interesting partnerships, like an Airbnb or, like you said, a Wander, or some of the companies that are going to have the persona of the type of customer that Turo is going to want. I think there's something interesting there. Bringing it in though, coming back to that branding warmth, um, I think they're just overall throughout the app. They do that here on the homepage, but in some of these steps that you're walking through, I think there could be a little bit more of that branding. And this is a good example. Like this to me is nice. This is that illustration plays a lot And I think they could do more of that, more of those illustrations, more of that kind of warm branding. The style of Turo is maybe not my visual favorite, but it works. I think it's a good brand. And I think it overall it works. That's one. The second would be the license step, right? Is what could we go do to kind of push you a little bit more toward that license? And you saw there on that page, I don't even know how I got there, but that warmth in that banner, I think that could be used more kind of further into that flow when you're looking at the license to say, hey, I was just onboarding as a user. It told me I needed my license. Like that illustration could have played a good role in just kind of, why do I need this? Again, Daniel, you mentioned that. Like we need to do a better job of validating why. And I think that they do it in some points, but they missed it in some other spots. I think that's some low-hanging fruit is just going through the actual initial sign-up flow. You have a couple of colder pages that just don't feel like they give you a good reason why I want to do it. And then the skipping, I could go back and forth on the skipping because I know that they really badly don't want you to skip, but also you don't want stuck users. So it's a balance there. So yeah, the first one, branding. Second one, the license. And the third one is that very first experience of notifications and then host. I think there could be a different experience right away that kind of gives you a little bit more before they ask you to turn on notifications and before they ask you about hosting. I think there could be a little bit more, again, we say this all the time, give a little bit more before you ask to get. And I don't know exactly what that would look like, but it could be just as simple as when you scroll down here, some of this content. This page is fully lifestyle. And I think they could bring a little bit more function, a little bit more filtering into this page here. What could we learn from like an Airbnb and how they do that kind of the different context. I love what they do right under the search bar with the different types of trips. I think you're right. There's something there that gives your user something a little bit more to bite into.
Yeah, what do you need this cart for? And then like Turo has those options.
Yeah. Or even, as simple as this filter here. Let's say this here. Cars, SUVs, minivans, trucks, vans, cargo vans. Like showing that filter on the homepage right here.
At the bottom.
Right at the top.
Yeah, that'd be
right
cool. Like I'm going to
right
the beach, like with the family, a minivan would be perfect.
Yeah. Right away you start to what you're doing there is you're starting to make your users picture their trip a little bit more.
Dang, that was good. That was a good line. Picture your trip. Instead of find your drive, is picture your trip.
Yeah. I mean that is right. You're giving them that like emotional connection to their trip that they didn't have before. So there's something there. So awesome. Well, this has been a fun one. I love doing reviews of apps that I really like. I really like Turo. I really like using it. I'm a Turo evangelist. And I think there's some like I said, they do so much really well. And there's some little bits of opportunity here that I think could be fairly easy to implement and yield something big. So, way to go, Turo. And if you're watching this, let's talk.
Let's do it.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. Peace.
Peace.